Today we're working on the Unit 2 study guide to get you ready for your test on Wednesday. So the first one, we've been given a conditional. It says write this statement as a conditional, then write the converse. So we're going to start by writing a conditional, which means it needs to be written in if-then form. So that would be if points are in the third quadrant, then, trying to make sure I stay in the screen, then the coordinates are negative. And remember, that is P, then Q. The next thing they want us to do is write the converse. So the converse, we are simply flipping those around. If coordinates of a point are negative, I'm going to do a little bit of abbreviation. Negative, then the point lies in the third quadrant. Now, it wants us to determine whether this is true, this is a biconditional or not. Well, the first statement is true and the second statement is true, so that means this is a good definition, which means we're going to write it in that biconditional format. So that would be points are in the third quadrant if and only if coordinates are negative. Okay, statement 2, identify the hypothesis. It says to circle it and then underline the conclusion. So the hypothesis is attached with the if, which is truly in the first part of the sentence. So our hypothesis is two lines intersect at right angles. The conclusion is the two lines are perpendicular. Okay, moving on to question number 3. We have to find the inverse, the converse, and the contrapositive, and they actually gave us each of the symbols as well. So again, the first thing we're going to do is flip it. So this is going to be if a polygon is an octagon, then it has 8 sides. Okay, the next one, we have to negate the original hypothesis and the conclusion. So if a polygon does not have 8 sides, then it is not an octagon. And then finally, we're flipping the hypothesis and conclusion, and then we're negating them. So if a polygon is not an octagon, then the polygon will not have 8 sides. Question 4, it tells us what property, we just have to complete it. So we've been told y is equal to 10, we've been given the following. So in place of that y, I get to substitute the 10. So it becomes 2x plus 10 equals 13. Okay, moving on to question 5. So if I'm looking for x, I'm going to have to solve an equation. We've talked about a couple different types of angles. We've talked about complementary, supplementary, linear pair, and vertical. In this case, if this is a right angle, this is a right angle, so these angles are complementary. So we're going to add their measures and set them equal to 90. I'm going to combine my like terms, and then we're just going to solve. And eventually we get x is equal to 47. They want us to find the measure of each angle. So this angle here is 47 plus 5. That gives me 52 degrees. This angle is 47 minus 9, which is going to give me 48 degrees. And I've done something wrong because when I add those together, right here's my mistake. This would be a 38. I was just checking when I add those I should get 90, and now I do. All right, question number 9, we're doing that deductive reasoning. I've been given an equation I'm trying to solve. Actually, I'm not trying to solve, I'm trying to prove that y is equal to 2. So we're going to start here. Our first reason is given. Now if you take a look at the next one, the y is still the same, the negative 4 is the same, but instead of 10x, I have a 10. So essentially I have done substitution, and really I've simplified all at the same time. The next one, notice I still have the negative 7y, but that 10 is gone. The only way to do that is subtraction, which I've also done from here. So that is subtraction property of equality. And then finally the last one, I have divided by that negative 7. Okay, moving on to question number 7. I have information regarding 1 and 3. So I'm going to start there because I know those are vertical and vertical angles are congruent. So I'm going to set 4x plus 54 equal to 7x minus 18. I'm going to subtract the 4x. I'm going to add the 18. And then finally we can go and divide by 3. And we get x to be 24. So first thing, let's go ahead and plug in that 24. So 4 times 24 plus 54, and 7 times 24 minus 18. We should get the same amount. I'm going to go ahead and grab my calculator and plug that in. Okay, and when I plugged it in for both of those, I got 150. So this is 150, this is 150, which in turn means this is 30 degrees because these have to add up to 180. And there's one other thing. They want us to figure out what W is. Well, angle 2 is 30, and I've got this expression. So let's put this down here. We have 2x plus 4w has to give me 30. I figured out from over here that x is equal to 24. So that would be 48 plus 4w equals 30, and now we're just going to solve it from here. And it looks like we're getting negative 4.5. Okay, number 8, we have to come up with an example of each of our own. Let's actually start with the reflexive property. We talked about when you look in the mirror, you see your reflection. So we can have something as simple as AB is equal to AB. The symmetric is when we flip things on each side of that equation. So for example, if back in Algebra 1, if I had 10 is equal to x plus 1, I'm allowed to flip that and write this as x plus 1 equals 10. So all I've done is flip both expressions on each side of the equation. Another way we know it's symmetric is you have that line of symmetry, which means these parts match up, the equals match up, and your 10 matches up. And then finally transitive. if I had AB is equal to CD and CD is equal to EF, here's that, what I call that transition in between those, then we end up with AB is equal to EF. Okay, let's go ahead and move on. We're on number 9. This one is back to kind of an algebraic proof. Just giving you a second to look at it. So this guy right here actually goes back to Unit 1. This is the segment addition postulate, which says if I add the two smaller segments, it's equal to that larger one. Then next, they give me the reason of substitution. So in place of AB, I know that is equal to 2x. In place of BC, I have a 6x plus 8. And back up in the given, in place of AC, I can put 32. Next, we combine like terms, which is just simplified. And now we're back to Algebra 1. They give us a hint we should be subtracting something from both sides, which in this case would be an 8. And then finally we divide by 8, and we end up with x is equal to 3. All right, moving on to the next set of problems. This is a proof, but written a little bit differently. It's more in a paragraph format. So it says, and it looks like maybe our picture got deleted as well. By the definition of supplementary angles, we know angle 1 and angle 2 equal 180 degrees. We also know that angle 2 and angle 3 would equal 180 degrees. Then notice I still have angle 1 and angle 2, but in place of that 180, I put the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3. So that's that substitution property. So I'm here, they're telling me I need to subtract the same thing from each side. Well, the only thing that's the same on each side is the measure of angle 2. Finally, we get the measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 3, so angle 1 is congruent to angle 3. Number 11, we're looking for an angle adjacent, which means next to angle XVY. And there's actually two angles next to it. There's angle 2 or there's angle 3. Number 12, vertical means they're directly across from each other. We have XVY, so that same angle right here, the angle that's across from it is angle 1. Still referring to that same angle, we need an angle that's supplementary, which means it would form 180 degrees or form a line. So actually that would be angle 2 or angle 3 again. And finally, they want an angle that is complementary. So complementary would mean they have to add up to 90 degrees. Well, if this angle is 45, we know this is 45 because they're vertical, which means they're actually complementary as well. And 15, they actually want us to find the measure of each angle. Well, we figured out this is 45, this is 45. So the measure of angle 1 is equal to 45 degrees. These two form a line which is 180, so that means the measure of angle 2 is 180 minus the 45, and I get 135. And then again, these two are vertical, which then means the measure of angle 3 is 135 degrees as well. Okay, 16, we're using inductive reasoning to find the next two terms. It looks like they're subtracting 10 from each side. So that would, or subtracting negative 10 from each one, so I get negative 14 and negative 24. And then for the last one, it looks like they're starting the pattern over. I'm going to put it down here. So I'd have a filled in triangle, then I have a star, which I can't do very well, another terrible star, but this one's filled in, then that plus, and then finally a plus that's been filled in. Okay, fill that one in, and I'm going to have to start a second video to finish up those last few questions.